In this video, we will take a look at the properties of bill materials and the properties of the item bubbles. So I will open the engine drawing. I will go to Sterling Engine folder and select Engine and open the drawing, and I will also update the views. Then I come down here to the bill of materials. The bill of materials is connected to the 3D scene, and the part numbers you see here are placed in the same order as the parts you find in the scene browser. And the same goes with the information here on the description. And the information you see here are the same as the information you have typed in the description in every part in the 3D scene. So that's why it is important that you fill in the information in description in every part in the scene, so it will be added here in the bill of materials. And it's also possible to customize the bill of materials. So in this video, we will look at the properties of the bill of materials and the item bubbles. So I will right click here on the bill of materials, and this menu will show up. First, we have update. You can update the bill of materials in certain situation, and we will take a look at that in a minute. Then you can delete the bill of materials by clicking here. You can also edit. If I click here, this dialog box will open, and here you can customize the bill of materials. And you have also alignment anchor. It's set to bottom right alignment. That means that if you add items to the bill of materials, the bill of materials will expand from bottom and up. Then we have bottom up display, but right now it's not selected. But if I click here, bottom up display, the header row will now be placed at the bottom. But I will change back here. I will uncheck that so that the header row will be placed at the top. And then we have rows based on, now it's based on part number. If I click instance, nothing happens. So now you can use update. So I can right click here and choose update, and we see that the bill of materials will expand from bottom and up, and we see also that now we have 4 screws and 4 washers, for instance on the cylinder, and 4 screws and 4 washers on the cover. So I will go back here, rows based on part number, and then I update it so it will have the same settings as from the beginning. And then I right click again, and here we have auto fit height all rows. It means that if I click here, the rows will resize to fit the text height of the content in the bill of materials. You can also save the bill of materials. If you have customized the bill of materials, you can save it as a template and place it in another drawing sheet or another drawing template. And you can also export this information to an Excel spreadsheet or to a text file or to a ERP system or business system by using C++ programming. Then I click Properties. In this dialog box, we see that the bill of materials is connected to the engine scene. And this configuration box is not available right now because the bill of materials is associated to the front view. So let's say that you were to add a bill of materials and there are blank rows. Then you have suppressed objects in the bill of materials. If that is the case, you can right click the bill of materials, go to properties so that this dialog box opens, and here you can change the configuration from include suppressed objects to default, for instance. And if you click OK and update the bill of materials, the blank rows will then disappear. But in this case, there will be no blank rows. Then we have some settings for the item bubbles here. Now it's set to item number, so every item bubble has an item number that represent the items that you see here in the bill of materials. You can also choose to have a split item bubble. then you can choose, for instance, to show the quantity of the items that you have in the scene or in the bill of materials, and that information will be added in the lower text of the splitted item bubble. But you can also add custom information if you click here and choose one of these properties. If there is any information in these properties, that information will be then added to the lower text in the item bubble. But I will set it back to quantity. And here we have some settings that you find when you right click in the bill of materials. It's the same settings here. So I will click cancel. You can also double click the bill of materials. It is the same as if you right click and click edit. So I will double click here, and this dialog box will open, and here you can customize the bill of materials. So for instance, you can select a column and change the width of the column. You can also select a row and change the height of the row. You can also select a column and right click, or select a cell and right click. And here you can choose to format cells. For instance, change the font styles and colors and borders. You can also change the column width and the row height, and also insert columns and insert rows, and also remove them. Here, edit styles, you can select the header row and change the settings for this header row by selecting it here and go to change and change the settings here. And you can also change the rest of the cells by clicking standard and go to change and change the settings here. I will choose cancel here. So I will right click again, and then you can also change the alignment, horizontal alignment, vertical alignment, and style, and it is the same as these buttons up here. This is the buttons for style, horizontal alignment, and vertical alignment. And this button, you have just gone through this. Here you can change the settings for the header row. And if you come down here, you will change the settings for the selected cells or rows here. So if you select this row, for instance, and change the font, the size, and the color, it will only change the selected cells. But this one will affect the whole table. So you will change the background color for the whole table here. So I will close this one. Now we will take a look at the item bubbles. So I will pan a little bit. Then I will grab an item bubble and I will click here on the washer, place it here, and click apply and exit. If I right click this item bubble, you can delete it, and you can also add a leader line. So then I can grab the arrowhead and point it to another washer, like so. And you can also right click and add an item, for instance screws. So I will select this row, click OK, and this item bubble will be placed on this side of that item bubble. And if you want to remove them, you right click again, go to remove item, and if you want to remove this leader line, you right click on the line and delete it. And I will right click again, and then we have start direction now set to left, and if you click right, we see that the start direction of the knee will change, but you can change that by moving the item bubble. So I will right click again. Then we have end symbol. Now it's set to arrow, and then we have none, but there are additional settings for that, so we will look into that in a minute. And then we have show knee. We can remove knee, and you can also show it. If you right click this node, you can unlock the length. In that way you can change the length of that knee. You can also unlock the angle to change the angle of that knee. But I will set it back to lock length and lock angle. Then we can right click again. Then we have frame. Now it's set to circle. You can also use split circle. So now this information here is this is the part number and this is the quantity. And perhaps you remember that if we right click here on the bill of materials and properties, we have the settings here for the item bubbles, that if you have a split circle, the upper text will be item number and the lower text will be quantity. So I right click again and go down here. Then I will set to circle here. And then we have styles, and here you can change to point end instead of arrow end if you want to. But I will change back to arrow end. And then we have properties. Here you can customize your item bubble when it comes to line type, line ends, color and font. You can also choose if it will have a knee or not. You can also change the custom knee length, this part. So you can do that here. And here you can change from circle to another geometry. So I will click cancel here. If you customize this item bubble, it will be only for this selected item bubble. If you want to customize all item bubbles, that they will have the same settings, you have to come up here to change or add a new style. And here in drawing elements, we go down a bit. Here we find item bubbles. If you select this row and go to styles, here you can add your own item bubble style. And then you go to modify and you modify it. And when you are done, you come up here to select your new style, to apply it. And then you click OK. I will click close here. And then you have to save this drawing sheet as a template to apply the new settings. So when you use that new drawing template, all item bubbles will have the new style you have added in styles and layers. So in that way you can customize your own item bubbles. So that was some information about the properties of the bill of materials and the item bubbles.